evening. Good to have you with us here on The Last Word. But before we get to the big story and the big debate tonight, quick check of what's been happening at the Enforcement Directorate all day long today. For the second straight day, Robert Vadra was grilled, was questioned by the Enforcement Directorate, and this time the questioning actually went on for over 9 hours. At the end of it, Robert Vadra's wife Priyanka Gandhi was there to pick him up to go back tonight, and we understand he will be called back again on Saturday. Bhavtosh is joining us with more details. Bhavtosh, what was primarily the focus of questioning today?
Tanvi, the questioning continued to center around the email trail which ED has said that they have unearthed, in which they claim that they have documentary evidence to prove that Robert Vadra was not only in touch with Sumit Chadha, but also with Sanjay Bhandari, a known defense dealer who fled India in 2016, and that the houses that were purchased by Sanjay Bhandari was actually the real property of Robert Vadra. Now, Robert Vadra since yesterday has completely denied these charges, said that he does not know Sanjay Bhandari, or for that matter his cousin Sumit Chadha. In the questioning, he admitted that he knows Manoj Arora, but only as an employee, that at no point of time he told him to send any mail at his behest. But more importantly is a strong message that is being sent by Priyanka Vadra. She again came to the ED's office. Again, not only is she showing that she is with her husband, but also that the party is openly supporting Robert Vadra. It's expected that on 11th of February, when Priyanka Gandhi Vadra will be attending a roadshow in Lucknow, she will make a statement. And Priyanka Gandhi and Congress has already said that this is nothing but a political witch hunt.
All right, Bhavtosh, thanks so much for really summarizing what happened today. All eyes, of course, as the questioning continues. Robert Vadra gets a day-long break tomorrow, but he is expected to be back at the ED office on Saturday. Well, the big debate tonight is again the jobs debate. Tonight, voters, Prime Minister Modi broke his silence on the unemployment debate. And just like the stand taken by few of his ministers and by Niti Aayog, Prime Minister has dismissed the jobs crisis. He says we are just counting it wrong. We are just calculating it wrong. So tonight, we once again bring back the conversation on employment in India. We break down the examples that have been given by the government to us. We look at the existing data that has been put out by various research organizations. We bring you more examples of the increase in job demand, the various examples where a certain number of posts has seen thousands and lakhs of applications, many times overqualified people. We'll also get you updates on the protests now that have begun to take place, demanding jobs, youngsters coming out on roads, demanding more job opportunities. What does all of this mean? Do we need to start understanding job creation differently? Do we need to change our perception? Have we evolved to that level? That's the big conversation. But before we go across to our panelists, let's listen into what Prime Minister Modi had to say.
55 साल के शासन के बावजूद अब मैं जरा ये सत्ता भोग की हाल क्या है। सत्ता भोग 55 साल, जॉब के संबंध में कोई स्टैंडर्ड व्यवस्था विकसित ही नहीं हुई 55 साल तक। हमारे लिए वो एजेंडा ही नहीं था पुरानी सरकारों के लिए कि रोजगार को ध्यान में रख करके व्यवस्थाएं विकसित करनी चाहिए। रोजगार का हिसाब कोई व्यवस्था नहीं है, और इसके लिए सत्ता भोग में डूबे हुए लोगों की जिम्मेवारी ज्यादा है। हमने आकर के कोशिश की है। देश में असंगठित क्षेत्र करीब 85 to 90% नौकरियां देता है, जबकि संगठित क्षेत्र सिर्फ 10 से 15% ही जॉब देता है। इस सत्य को स्वीकार करना होगा। अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर में 80 to 90% है, जबकि ऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर में 10 to 15% ओनली। सितंबर 2017 से लेकर नवंबर 2018 तक, यानी करीब 15 महीने में लगभग 1,80,00,000 लोगों ने पहली बार प्रोविडेंट फंड का पैसा कटाना शुरू किया। ये बिना रोजगार होता है क्या? हाँ, इनमें से 64% लोग हैं जिनकी उम्र 28 साल से कम है। हमारे देश में मार्च 2014 में करीब 65 लाख लोगों को नेशनल पेंशन सिस्टम एनपीएस में रजिस्टर किया गया था। पिछले साल अक्टूबर में ये संख्या बढ़कर के 1,20,00,000 हो गई। क्या ये भी बिना नौकरी के सब हुआ होगा क्या? कोई ऐसे ही कर देता होगा क्या? ट्रांसपोर्ट सेक्टर, असंगठित कामदार जो होते हैं, उसमें ट्रांसपोर्ट सेक्टर में सबसे ज्यादा रोजगार का अवसर होता है। बीते 4 वर्षों में करीब 36 लाख बड़े ट्रक या कमर्शियल व्हीकल बिके हैं। करीब 1.5 करोड़ पैसेंजर व्हीकल्स बिके हैं और 27 लाख से ज्यादा नए ऑटो की बिक्री हुई है। ये सारी गाड़ियां जिन्होंने भी खरीदी है, क्या उन्होंने पार्किंग करके रखी है क्या? एक अनुमान है कि ट्रांसपोर्ट सेक्टर में ही देश में बीते 4.5 वर्षों में करीब 1.25 करोड़ लोगों को नए अवसर मिले हैं। देश में टैक्सी एग्रीगेटर सर्विस का इतना विस्तार हो रहा है, लेकिन विपक्ष के मेरे साथियों को लगता है कि तमाम ऐप बेस्ड कंपनियां ये कर रही हैं। ये ऐप बेस्ड कर रही है, क्या ड्राइवरलेस कार चल रही है क्या? ना, ऐप बेस्ड हो रहा है तो क्या ड्राइवरलेस कार है क्या? उसमें भी कोई न कोई गाड़ी चलाता है, उसको भी कोई न कोई रोजगार है।
So let's say good evening to our panelist Santosh Mehrotra, Professor of Economics at Center for Informal Sector and Labour Studies at JNU. Sanjay Jha, spokesperson for the Congress Party. Shailesh Gandhi, former Chief Information Commissioner. Ashish Sood, leader of the BJP. We'll also soon have Kiran Kumar, founding member and Chief Sales Officer for People Strong. But first, I want to go across to Sai Balaji, President of JNU Student Union Wing. And Sai Balaji's group and many other students and youngsters came out to protest on the streets of the national capital today. So, Sai, let's understand from you, because there were several groups who came out to protest today, demanding jobs, demanding specific kind of opportunities. What is your response to what Prime Minister Modi had to say today?
I was just trying to, hi Tanvi, I was just trying to note down what the Prime Minister has said. 36 lakh new big trucks, 2.5 crore smaller vehicles and 37 lakh autos. Let's imagine I'm a PhD student. I'm doing my diplomacy in disarmament. Similarly, there are students who are doing engineering. Similarly, there are students who are doing who are in the field of medicine. Let's assume everyone who has a degree starts driving a big truck, starts driving a small Tata Ace, starts driving an auto. If this is what employment is, then why are we running our universities? Let's close down our universities. That is precisely what Modi government is doing. This is not employment. In the sense, this is a kind of employment which people are doing out of a necessity to survive. What we are demanding is dignified employment. Will a person having a degree with a mechanical degree work and drive an auto, or will he manufacture an auto? Why isn't Modi government bringing out data on how many mechanical engineers have got jobs in his Make in India program? Why isn't Modi government bringing out data saying that how many electrical engineers have got jobs in the transport sector making wires for the same trucks so that they can light the roads? Why isn't the Modi government bringing up data on showing how many small scale industries were engaged in making tires for the truck industry? They can't bring out. The reason why? Because this government has failed miserably on the employment front. And regarding the PF data, Tanvi, if you understand logic for a second, I am right now sitting in Noida's film city. Let's assume you leave this channel and join a new channel. Your PF account changes, but the PF, you get a new PF number and you get added to the old list if you don't delete your old PF number. That does not mean that a new job has been created, a new person has got employment. It only means that a new data has been brought in. That's it. That cannot be the basis of new employment. And the data that Modi has been telling, that less than 28 years, I mean youngsters of less than 28 years have got a job with because they have a PF account. Why can't it be seen as if formalization of the informal economy?
Yes.
People who have been working in the informal sector have started opening PF accounts. That does not mean that they have got new jobs. If I quote you three sets of data, which will give you a grave picture of the employment scenario in this country. Because of demonetization, close to 3 to 4 crore people lost jobs in this country. Because of GST and demonetization combinedly, close to 7 lakh small scale sector companies.
So let's take it point by point, Sai Balaji.
Yeah.
Yes, let's take it point by point. I agree with you that EPFO data may not necessarily mean that more jobs are being created, and that debate has now gone on for since the time the government started quoting that. But the fact of the matter is, what the government is right now saying is we are enabling an environment for jobs or businesses to be created. And if we are giving an XYZ number of loans, if we are giving out 4.25 crore loans, those loans are being used to set up new businesses, big or small, which will then employ more people and hence more employment opportunities. So Santosh Mehrotra is with us, and we've had a lot of these conversations with him on the panel. I'm going to ask you, Mr. Mehrotra, tonight, that do you think what the government is trying to tell us is that we need to change our own view of what we call, how we calculate employment firstly, and secondly, like Sai Balaji is highlighting, it's not just about the job opportunity available, it's the quality of employment that they are looking at. You have highly educated, overskilled people today who are still struggling for jobs, and the sense they are getting today is it's okay if you have an MBA degree, please go and apply for a grade 4 or a sweeper post in the government, in the Tamil Nadu Assembly.
Right. So there is no question that in the last 10 years, the number of young people who are getting better and better education and continuing to higher and higher levels of education has increased very dramatically. At higher education level, the enrollment rate has gone from 11% in 2006 to about 27% 2 years ago. So clearly these people are entering the labor force, and some of them are getting jobs, but many of them are not, which is the reason why the unemployment rate has risen. The real problem with what the government is trying to tell us, unfortunately, is that we have not had good data, and therefore it is trying to put together all this anecdotal evidence on job creation. So let me deal, point by point with this anecdotal evidence. But before I turn to that, let me just say very briefly that since 1973-74, we have had multiple rounds of employment and unemployment surveys. They have been carried out on a very rock-solid basis. That data is there. So to argue that for 55 years we haven't had a system of data for collecting information on employment is unfortunately running down the Central Statistical Organization first and the National Sample Survey Organization, which are first-rate organizations which have been helping other developing countries. So first of all, that simply shouldn't even be talked about. Let me turn to EPFO, and then I will turn to these sort of the trucks sold, etc. On the EPFO, I think it has been repeatedly pointed out by many analysts, including the chief statistician of India, that most of this is reflecting formalization of informal jobs. In other words, people who were earlier in the informal sector have come into the formal economy, they've registered, and this process has been encouraged by the GST, and to that extent, this is a good thing. But what nobody tells you is that while people are getting added to the EPFO list, there are also people leaving the EPFO list, and the Niti Aayog puts that out. So one has to look at what is the net addition as a result of that. And what we do know is that some of these are new organized sector regular jobs.
Yes.
But a very significant proportion of these are simply formalization of erstwhile informal jobs. Finally, let me turn to the trucks sold, the autos sold, etc. Unfortunately for the government, all of this data about mudra loans, EPFO, trucks sold, and the jobs created by them is actually captured in 3 sources of data, 2 of which are government sources. One is the annual survey of the Labour Bureau, which I have analyzed, which you were referring to earlier, and the Center for the Monitoring of the Indian Economy, and now most recently the 2017-18 NSS leaked data. And all of that is showing, taking into account both organized as well as unorganized sector jobs, that the unemployment rate has risen. And the reason why the unemployment rate has risen, I've already explained to you earlier.
Yes.
Because the number of educated young people is growing and the educated unemployment rate is rising, while the number of jobs, while growing, they're not growing fast enough to absorb all the people entering the labor force. Thank you.
I take your point completely, and maybe then we need to start having a more sharper conversation, and the government needs to start looking at this issue as well, about the quality of jobs that are being created, and if that is what actually India wants. And if that is what actually young India wants, so while you may say that Skill India is working and we are equipping so many people with these kind of skills to go out and work in these smaller businesses, is that what, say, anybody in Chennai, Mumbai, Delhi, any of those tier 2, tier 3 towns really want? I'm going to give 2 examples to add to the point that Balaji was making about if I am a PhD or an engineer, what options do I have? 4,607 people registered for 14 posts of sanitary workers at the State Assembly Secretariat in Chennai. This is the big story that came out yesterday. Many of these people, the 4,000 odd people who registered, who applied for these 14 posts for sanitary work, were actually MBA graduates, were actually engineer graduates. Some of them even had MCom and BSc degrees. Here is another example. Of the 93,000 applicants, including PhD holders, vying for 62 PN posts in Uttar Pradesh and 7,000 candidates applying for 13 vacancies of waiters at the canteen in Mantralaya in Mumbai, most of these are more qualified than the prescribed qualification that is required here, which is 4th or 5th standard pass. And we are talking about people who've done PhDs and who've done their engineering degrees and who've become doctors to then go ahead and apply for these posts. So I think the larger question that we need to start asking is, are we creating the right quality of jobs, Sanjay Jha? It's not a new problem. We were very well aware of this even during UPA era. It's just that nothing seems to have been done even in the last 4 years about it.
Well, Tanvi, I think let me add to one more example that you gave. 19 million people, 19 million young people applied for 93,000 jobs in the railways. And they included, as you rightly mentioned, MBAs, PhDs, and engineers. So, I mean, the crisis is for real. You see, the problem is that if somebody is sleeping, you can genuinely wake them up. But somebody pretends to be, dozing off, then no matter how hard you try, they will continue to, kind of believe nothing wakes them up at all. And I think if you want to live in a fool's paradise and live in denial, then you have a problem, because this is the government in power. Now, think about it, that you have had the chairman of the National Statistical Commission go public and say that this government is not allowing the data to be published. I mean, to my mind, this is the biggest damage to the credibility of India's reputation. Because, whether the figure is good or bad, it's just one part of the problem. The other part is that people begin to lose faith in you. People don't believe government data. Now, the NSSO survey says that the unemployment is at a record high. And if it's a 45-year record high, and Mr. Modi is going to come in parliament and say that, my pakoda economics is really the logical way to go forward, I mean, you're mocking institutions of governance in this country. I mean, think about it, Tanvi. The unemployment rate was 2.2% in 2011-12, when India was an economy which was recovering from the terrible Great Recession. After a buoyant world economy, low oil prices, 5 years of a majority government, if the unemployment rate is 6.1%, almost up by 285%, you have got a gargantuan problem. The government chooses to ignore it. Now you look at CMIE data. It tells you that last year 11 million people lost their jobs, but nobody wants to talk about it in the government. They say we don't want to buy the data. You are still talking as if demonetization was a great economic step.
What the government is saying that the CMIE
continues to live in a land of illusions.
What the government is saying that what NSSO is telling us and what CMIE is telling us, and the basis of their calculation isn't valid anymore because they don't include a lot of sectors and they don't include a lot of different kinds of jobs, which is where we are seeing the growth. So they are saying 11,000 people may have lost their jobs, but so many more people actually started driving cabs for Uber and Ola, and they are employed today.
If I have a minute, I can make a quick point.
So why should we not factor that in? So many more people have now opened shops
Tanvi, can
with
I
the Mudra loans.
Can I answer that?
Yes, yes. Sanjay Jha first, and then we'll go across.
Tanvi, let me give you an answer to the Mudra and the Ola Uber one very quickly. On Mudra loans, the average size of a Mudra loan is around 42,000 rupees. Now, just think about it. If you take a Mudra loan of 42,000 rupees, are you going to really create a business out of that? I mean, it will virtually be some kind of a small trading outfit. Are you going to employ somebody and pay somebody out of that 42,000 loan that you've taken? So it's a preposterous and an absurd hypothesis. Let me also give you the example of Ola and Uber. There are people, I live in Mumbai, and you know, I can tell you, many people who used to drive the famous Kali Pili, who had a job of being a driver, shifted to Ola and Uber. Even that is in duplicate employment. Many people who drive Ola also drive Uber. So, you know, this is a ridiculous argument. I mean, end of day, you got to create, manufacturing has to be stronger. The simple answer is, if private capital investment is negative growth in India, how can you have jobs? I mean, this government is clearly living in denial and I think fooling itself, but worse is fooling the people of India.
Well, I think maybe you should also take a little bit of credit on that, Sanjay Jha. You killed the spirit of private sector in such a way that when they stopped investing 6 years ago, they still haven't found the heart to come back and start investing and again borrowing money to put in new plants. So that's also there. Mr. Mehrotra, I see your hand, but we've got a few more panelists who've joined us. So let me quickly bring in their views also. Yes, we can debate that another day, Sanjay Jha. I take your point. Ashish Sood, thank you for joining us. We have a student representative today who was part of the protest that took place in the national capital, who says that your view of the jobs that you are creating isn't acceptable because we have highly qualified students today, engineers, MBA graduates, doctors, PhDs, academics. And are you suggesting that we all start going out there and start driving Olas and autos? So that's point number one. I'm just updating you because you just joined us and you may have missed that conversation. And of course, you heard what Sanjay Jha said, so you can respond to both of them.
I was listening to all your panelists. Two of your panelists have given two different statements. One was talking about job loss, and another was talking, while referring to EPFO data, was talking about the formalization from one particular unorganized sector to the organized sector. So both these statements, one says that we will not agree to the EPFO data because it is the formalizing of the old jobs. Other says the old jobs have been lost. Number one. Number two, other panelist was talking about how many electrical engineers are employed, how many mechanical engineers are employed in this 4 years. Mr. Sainath, does he has a data as to how many electrical engineers were employed in between 2009 to 2014? Sai Balaji, sorry, I stand corrected. Sai Balaji, do you have a data as to how many electrical engineers were employed in making wires between 2009 to 2014? No. Congress purposefully had ignored the formalization of the process of creation of jobs by the unorganized sector. Hence, this kind of things are, and this is very pathetic when you say this is not a graceful employment. This is why the brain drain has started from the country. People started going abroad. One who can earn from his own resources is as graceful. Even if I buy Mr. Jha's argument that 42,000 rupees is the minimum, the average loan which was given under Mudra, it was given to 12 crore people. So if they were not able to generate employment, were they able to, will Mr. Jha agree to this, that those 12 crore were empowered to earn for themselves? Is this not enough for Mr. Jha? When there was a time when Jawaharlal Nehru
Right, Mr. Sood.
loan melas used to be
Mr. Sood.
used to be.
Let me just come in here and say,
of the channel,
of the 12 crore,
There's a one quick
of
point
the
after
12
this.
crore of loans that were
One
given
quick
under
point.
Mudra, more than half of them were to existing businesses. So I think that's just like any bank giving out more loan for a business to continue. Hardly counts for taking a credit for that.
6 crore people.
Hardly counts for to the tune of 40,000 to 50,000 to the amount of less than 50,000 rupees.
6 crore people were able to
Get loans of less than 50,000
Tanvi,
rupees.
Mudra is becoming an NPA problem.
Okay, I have to, yes, quick point by Sai Balaji, and then Shailesh Gandhi has been waiting. And we have Kiran Kumar to give us insights on to how is the hiring really looking.
Mudra is becoming
Tanvi,
an NPA scam.
Yes,
I believe.
okay, Mr. Jha and Mr.
the
Sood,
Modi
take a
government
break.
even
Yes,
has to answer.
yes. Sai Balaji, go ahead, please.
I mean, even Modi government has to answer. In the Rajya Sabha, government itself has said that more than 24 lakh government jobs are lying vacant.
Yes.
So why hasn't the Modi government
how
filled
many
these
electrical
24 lakh
engineers were
jobs
employed between
in the last 4
2009
years?
to 2014?
Now, Mr. Ashish Sood, please don't repeat your point. You've already made that point. Can I just hear what Sai Balaji has to ask you?
Tanvi,
Yeah.
Tanvi, one thing, if I have to answer what the Congress has done, they have lost an election in 2014.
Yes.
If that is the case, then BJP will also lose an election in 2019, because they are the ones who promised they will bring better governance in governance in past 5 years. And why are 24 lakh government jobs lying vacant? Will Modi answer for that? I challenge Modi, take 42,000 rupees loan as a Mudra loan and employ 10 people and give them salaries and develop a business. Then will accept his idea of giving false jumlas and treating young India as someone who can be just, bashed away this side and that side and give some false explanation on jobs front will not be done.
Okay.
Argue on basis of facts.
Point
Facts
taken.
that your government has brought
Point
up.
taken. Two more panelists who haven't spoken yet. Shailesh Gandhi, thank you for patiently waiting. Before I go to Kiran Kumar, let me bring you into the original point. Mr. Sood, calm down,
Electrical
please.
engineers were employed.
Mr. Sood, you've said the same point now 4 times. Let me just reiterate to you, this is the last word where we hear out everybody and everybody gets a chance to talk. We don't talk over each other.
You allege to the government, Tanvi.
I don't know, maybe Sai Balaji wasn't looking for electrical job in 2009 when UPA was in power, so it was little going to be redundant to ask him that question. Shailesh Gandhi, who's been listening to all the panelists right now, again the question that I asked initially, Mr. Gandhi, maybe there is a disconnect between what young India wants, what the working population of India wants, what they are qualified to do, and what the government thinks they are providing and is the right thing to do.
So I think I have a small disagreement with that position. In my opinion, whether the jobs are created for engineers or whether they are created for the poor should be a job created. And I think definitely India should focus more on creating jobs for the poorer people. This is a very elitist position, saying how many jobs were created for engineers, how many jobs were created for doctors. What about those who are poor? I think they must take first priority, and I think nobody will deny that. However, the problem with the figures that Mr. Modi has given is that we have no comparable figures. Ideally, he should have given comparable figures for an earlier period of 5 years or 10 years or whatever, and then said comparatively this is what it looks like. And his contention that the unorganized sector has grown tremendously Maybe it is true, maybe it is not true. I do not think we have data to support either view. Therefore, we are talking the absence of data. The fact that this government has not given adequate data creates some doubt that maybe the data is being represented in a wrong manner. But that by itself is not adequate. We need more data. If they say informal jobs were not being counted earlier and now they are being counted, please give us data of what the informal job generation was before this period. Without that, how do we compare? And I repeat again, I think this position that engineers are applying for sweepers jobs, etc., this has always been the case. I don't think that's an aberration of the system which has always been there. However, if genuinely jobs have been created, the only problem of disconnect is there are a lot of agitations happening across the country.
Yes.
Not just students, but different kinds of people are showing their anger, their disenchantment with the job situation. That is a cause for worry. If these, by themselves, if these figures are right, and they represent a big jump over the earlier period, then it represents a progress. But I'm not too sure because no data has been given even by Mr. Modi.
Yes.
Mr. Modi says this is what has happened, so many vehicles. But how many vehicles were sold before that in the 5-year or 10-year period? We don't have any data. Are we being given selective data?
Okay.
None of us has any clue, at least I don't, of what were the figures before that. We
No,
just don't know.
absolutely. I agree with you,
Trucks
which
were
is...
sold, how many?
Yes, I agree with you, which is why I didn't want to really highlight that data that was presented to us today and has been presented to us earlier, because we didn't get the time today after Prime Minister Modi spoke to really cull out the data from the previous last 10 years and make that comparison. But Professor Mehrotra, perhaps you can shed some light on that aspect.
Absolutely. We have data going back to 1973-74. So perhaps Mr. Gandhi needs to go back and look at that data. Point one. Point two.
I'm saying, give
the
that
argument
data.
was made by Mr. Gandhi that there is no comparable data about how many jobs were created earlier. So let me respond to that. But we have data from the NSS, the very NSS whose data is not being released. From the NSS, we have data which says the following, that between 2004-05 and 2011-12, when the economy was growing at the fastest rate ever in our history, the number of non-agricultural jobs that were created was 7.5 million new non-agricultural jobs when only 2 million young people were joining the labor force, which is the reason why the open unemployment rate fell. So it is simply untrue that we did not have data and we currently don't have data. I began my first intervention by telling everyone that there are 3 sources of data that we currently have for the last 5 years. How many times am I going to repeat this? First, we have the annual survey of the Labour Bureau, which is a nationally representative sample, which captures Mudra, which captures the Ola Uber, which captures all the unorganized sector. Source 1. Source 2. The Center for the Monitoring of the Indian Economy has a sample size labor force survey of the entire country, larger than the annual of the Labour Bureau annual survey. Third source, the NSS, 2017-18, same sample size as the Labour Bureau. How many sources of data do we need to prove that enough jobs are not being created? And now I want to turn to why enough jobs are not being created. I think people need to understand. First of all, in 2013-14, the investment to GDP ratio was 31%. Today, investment stands at 26% of GDP, a 5 percentage point of GDP decline. This includes public investment and private investment. Systematically, investment rate has fallen despite all the de-stalled projects that the government keeps claiming. Point one, new jobs get created as a result of higher investment. Point one. Point two, the agricultural growth rate in the last 4 years has been 2% or under 2%. It was systematically above 3% in the preceding 10 years. So, Jobs are not even getting created in agriculture, nor in non-agriculture. Third, in manufacturing, I have estimated there's an absolute decline in the number of manufacturing jobs. Why should we be surprised? Because the rate of growth of IIP, the Index of Industrial Production, has been very slow. Why should we be surprised? Fourth, the exports, which stood at $315 billion in the year 13-14, dipped sharply after that. Even now, they have not climbed up to $315 billion. I want to tell you that about half of our exports are accounted for by the unorganized sector. And who attacked the unorganized sector?
Right.
It was demonetization. It was badly planned GST, which resulted in loss of jobs. I think there is plenty of evidence to this effect. There is plenty of evidence to say that jobs are not growing as fast as young entrants are joining the labor force. And I've given you the reasons. I don't see who can argue that we don't have the data.
No, so I think he was saying it more from the point of view, Mr. Mehrotra, that we don't have the data right now with us offhand, that when Prime Minister Modi listed out the data of how many trucks and how many autos, he didn't give us a comparison of the time before that.
That is not true.
Agreed. Of course it's there. It is available. And I think there is no denying that fact.
True.
It is available. No, there is no denying that. That data is available. The data about how much of business and sales are done in transport sector has definitely been available. And I think that Mr. Gandhi also knows right now. Kiran Kumar is with us. Thank you for joining us, Kiran. Do you agree with what Prime Minister said today, that the way we've seen employment being calculated is now outdated? There are so many more new sectors, there are so many new avenues which don't get factored in, which is where people are getting employment now. What's your own sense about the job debate?
Sure. So I'm not. Are you able to hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
We had some connection issues here.
No, we can hear you loud and clear. Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, good. So thank you. Thank you so much. I'll just want to bring in some data into the conversation. There has been a lot of conversation I was hearing through. I was connected a while back, and I was able to hear about all the other panel members as well. Let me just share some amount of data that we were able to cultivate at People Strong, and what we do every day and day in, day out for working for our customers. So the last year we closed about 60,000 permanent jobs in India across 6 different segments. That has been our highest number so far in the last 13 years of history that we have operated. The jobs that I'm talking about are very formal kind of jobs. So if you've heard about global in-house centers, so a lot of outsourcing work that comes to India, where you have Bangalore, Hyderabad, Mumbai as hubs. There are a lot of formal increase of jobs because there's a lot of increased outflow of jobs coming in India in a very formal kind of a place as well. Then you have the internet e-commerce kind of business that we're talking about, where we always talk about the Olas and the Ubers, but there is far more to it. There are Swiggies of the world, there are Zomatos of the world, who are just not getting these cab drivers and delivery guys on the front end and jobs, but they're increasingly create formal jobs for a lot of skilled workers that is coming into the segment as well. Auto manufacturing, we are seeing a high. We have a few customers who are working in that particular place as well. Financial services, banking, and small finance banks. The banks licenses that were given 2-3 years ago, that is getting materialized because there's a lot of frontline jobs that is getting generated there as well. IT technology, of course, with a lot of these visa issues that had come up. In spite of that, there was a blip on the radar for some numbers going down, but we've been able to see that numbers going up as well. All of this has added about 60,000 jobs that we closed last year in all of these 5 to 6 segments. These have been the highest ever. I'm not saying that I have all the jobs that are available in these sectors, but the sheer fact that they have been showing a significant uptrend is a kind of point that I would want to share amongst all the panel members.
Okay, so let me quickly get a reaction.
Is a report that we launch out every year.
Right, fair enough. So you've given us various
just
examples of where jobs are being created. Yes, go ahead, please. Finish your point.
So the India Skill Report shows about 65% employers, again highest ever. They have shown an increased trend in the last 3 to 4 years, but a highest trend of about 65% of employers have shown a positive outlook to the hiring that is going to happen. There has been an year-on-year increase of the survey data by about 15 basis points, 15%. And the kind of surveys that we do with CII, LinkedIn, all of that. So formal kind of surveys that we have done have also shown all of these data going up as well.
Maybe you want to
And
give
just
some of that
thing I
data
want to highlight again,
to the team
I'm not
that
talking about
works with the government, maybe to the Niti Aayog, because they're struggling to give us data right now. Just for our viewers to understand, Kiran is part of and represents People Strong, which is an organization that deals with recruitment and that deals with talent acquisition, and that's where he's coming. He's bringing this data from. Sai, do you want to respond to what Kiran Kumar is saying, that it's not true that there is a lot of growth even in the organized, in the formal sector, in the professional sector as well? Sai Balaji, and then we'll go across to Sanjay Jha.
My quick point that I wanted to make, in 2017, the big 4 IT companies in this country recruited 70% less freshers. Not only that, in 2015 and 16, especially the CMIE data says the big PSUs in this country like ONGC and MTNL had killed 55,000 jobs. Not only that, the public sector units, central public sector units in last 3 years had lessened 15 lakh jobs. SSC, RRB and UPSC combined in 2015 hired 1,15,000 people in their ranks. In last year, only 1 lakh people were hired. India's population is increasing, its demands are increasing, our economy is growing, and unfortunately jobs that are available for the people are not being filled by the government. In railway itself, more than 4 lakh jobs are lying vacant. In universities, more than 2 lakh jobs are lying vacant of teachers. DU is just nearby in Delhi. More than 5,000 jobs are on contract. So the jobs that we are talking about are just not jobs, but they're contractualized, privatized, insecure, and jobs where the employee is not being treated as a dignified individual, but as someone who is there to be stole off, to the resources being stole off for a price. This is not acceptable for this young India.
Okay, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but I'm running out of time, and I quickly wanted a comment in from Sanjay Jha as well. Mr. Jha, go ahead, please.
Tanvi, there is another organization called the All India Manufacturers Organization. And what did their survey said? They, by the way, represent the largest bulk of India's MSME sector. And they said over the last 3 years, Indians have been we have lost jobs of 3.5 million. These are very, very staggering numbers. And if you look at this data, match it to the CMIE number, look at the NSSO feedback that they had on the job losses, you can see that you're staring at a humongous challenge. Now, you can't take anecdotal examples. Yes, even in an economy that is struggling, some sectors will do well. It's not as if the entire economy is gone into doldrums. So some sporadic gain here and there doesn't change the story. I think the larger fact that we need to accept that the demographic dividend has become a big liability for the country because the government took the eye off job creation. I think Mr. Mehrotra nailed it. You see, when he said that if your investment as a proportion of GDP is actually falling down, it means there are no new businesses happening. And Tanvi, you know the data on stalled projects. New investment proposals are at a 14-year low.
Yes.
Manufacturing activity is dismal. And which is why you see the job crisis, because people are getting more into Manrega. So people are losing jobs. Construction has been bad. People are leaving urban areas, going and working in villages and depending on Manrega. So you have a serious problem. I'll give you one last point. This government told all of us there is no farm crisis.
Yes.
They kept denying it as a political movement. In Maharashtra, they even call the farmers
We'll
and
keep the
urban
farm
nationals.
crisis and the farm debate for another day. Mira now has a lot of those conversations as well. Yes, and we will have that conversation one more time. But I'm going to thank all of our panelists. I know this was a last-minute change to have this conversation, but because Prime Minister Modi finally spoke about it, I thought we had to pick it up and see where the disconnect lies. Why is it that we are seeing students come out on streets and protest? Why is it that we are seeing teachers come out on streets and protest? Why is it that we are seeing farmers who've lost their land come out on streets and protest? Why is it that we are seeing the Jats protest, the Gujars protest, the Marathas protest? Why are all of these communities asking for a separate quota, a separate reservation? Why is it that the political parties are focusing more on quotas in jobs and education, are focusing more on local versus outside quota, economically weak versus caste-based quota? All of this stems from the fact that there is this disappointment, there is this frustration building in the working population of this country. People are struggling to get the kind of employment opportunities that they want. Otherwise, you wouldn't see them come out on streets like this. The government needs to understand this. So yes, you have created a lot more new avenues from service industry to the e-commerce industry to even businesses and entrepreneurs. But perhaps that's not enough, because this mindset and the skills and the capabilities of the working population will not change overnight. Why is it even now that people are queuing up in thousands and lakhs for a few government jobs? Are government jobs still so popular over private jobs? Why is it that when UP put out its applications for government jobs, the system broke down because they got so many applications that they had to postpone the PSC exam? Those are the kind of stories that we are hearing all around us. And those are the kind of visuals that we are seeing. I think it's really difficult to deny that there is a job crisis. The challenge will be to bridge what the government is making available and what it is that the people really want. Thank you for joining us on this debate. But before we wrap up, Prime Minister Modi spoke for about an hour and 45 minutes. Apart from what he said for jobs, he also covered various other aspects. But apart from the important newsy points, we also decided to collate a few of the interesting moments where the wit came out, where scathing attacks were made on the opposition, where there was quite a bit of banter within the parliament. Take a look at some of those excerpts of his speech.
कि 47 से 14 तक, 47 से 14 तक, तो मुझे लगता है कि शायद बीसी और एडी की उनकी अपनी व्याख्या है। बीसी की व्याख्या उनकी है बिफोर कांग्रेस, मतलब कि कांग्रेस के पहले कुछ नहीं था इस देश में, सब तबाह था, गर्त में था। और एडी का मतलब है आफ्टर डायनेस्टी।